Hey, good evening. Welcome to good evening, Midwest Survivor. Welcome to Dinner Chat. So thank you to everybody that's checking out the YouTube videos, checking out the Facebook post, checking out the TikTok, the X post, the Lemonade post, and the Pinterest post. Thank you for checking out the Facebook Shorts. Be sure to click like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We need 40 more subscribers so that YouTube can open up the live stream so that we can do a regular live stream instead of me recording a video and uploading it, where people can contribute, ask questions, communicate, and talk to me on a regular basis. Because here's the thing, this is about healing and recovering and rebuilding your life, and not only learning to survive, but learning how to thrive and be healthy and be wealthy. So tonight's dinner chat topic is why people don't see the true nature of something until something happens. So, we're talking about something that can be very uncomfortable, but is exceptionally important, and will also, not only that, but change your life. The question is always the same. Why do people often fail to see someone's true nature until a major event forces them to do so? And this just doesn't apply to famous criminals. It applies to abusive relationships, toxic families, unhealthy churches, workplace, friendships, and even our own lives. You think back to situations in your job where people's real nature comes out. One of the hardest lessons to learn is simply this: people rarely judge others by consistent patterns. They usually wait for one big dramatic event, either a positive dramatic event or a negative dramatic event. And I'm going to use two very nefarious and very evil people from history, and that is Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. History gives us examples of how a misleading appearance can be. Ted Bundy was exceptionally intelligent. He represented himself as his own attorney. He was charming, intelligent, well-spoken, attractive, helpful, educated, exceptionally brilliant mind. However, many people who knew him simply could not reconcile or believe what he had done. Some of the things that they said about him was he was so good looking, or he seemed so nice, or, looking at him, I never would have believed it. John Wayne Gacy, same public image, active in his community, involved in many community organizations, owned and was very successful in business, entertained children as a clown, considered friendly by many of his neighbors and employees. And after his crimes were uncovered, countless people responded with exceptional disbelief, again saying he was always so nice. And I think back to Bernie Madoff. People said how smart he was and how brilliant he was, but yet he committed one of the largest Ponzi schemes in American history. Being brilliant, being good looking, being charming, being whatever, just doesn't simply mean that everything is on the up and up. And tonight's lesson isn't about them and about their crimes. I wanted to use that as kind of a metaphor and a segue. People often mistake the outward image for character. Being a pleasant person isn't the same as being trustworthy. Being a charismatic speaker isn't the same as being healthy. Being respected isn't the same as being honest. And here's why our brains miss it. There are several psychological reasons why people overlook harmful behavior. So number one is they judge by isolated moments. Someone may have had dozens of warning signs that were just completely ignored and put under the rug, and nobody gave them a second look because they smiled yesterday. And because they smiled yesterday, we dismiss today's red flag. Number two is we don't want our beliefs challenged. We want to believe that people are good, and we want to believe that the person that messed up is good. Once we've decided that someone is good, our brains naturally explain away behavior that just does not fit. Instead of changing our opinions, we change our explanation. We try to rationalize the negative and rationalize the bad away. We confuse reputation with reality. Common things that people say is they've been in church for over 30 years. They are a respected business owner. They're a great parent. They volunteer. And all those things may be true, but none of them automatically tell us how someone treats somebody behind closed doors. There's probably a lot of things being said about me, both by my family, both by people that I knew, both by colleagues or whatever. But the reality is that nobody knows what has gone on until they have walked in my skin and walked in my shoes. You don't know how somebody really is until you live behind closed doors with them for a very, very long time. And which leads into my segue. Abuse happens in private more often than it happens in public. One main reason emotional abuse is so difficult to expose is that because many people never witness it, never hear it, never see it. The public sees the smile, the generosity, the intelligence, the jokes, the confidence. They see everything publicly that the person that is committing the abuse wants them to see, because the abuser fears being exposed more than anything else. They don't want the light shown on them. They don't want to be exposed for what they really are. The victim experiences the criticism, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the fear, the walking on the eggshells, the constant emotional abuse, the constant emotional roller coaster. And the two different realities can exist at the same time and do exist at the same time. And it's hard on the victim because they go from what happens behind closed doors to the public persona, and then back to what happens behind closed doors, and then back to the public persona, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which causes chaos, instability, and constant emotional ups and downs. Patterns tell the truth. Here's something worth remembering. Character isn't revealed by someone's best day. It is revealed by consistent patterns that happen over time. Anyone can appear kind for a few minutes. Character shows up in how someone responds when they're told no, when they're corrected, when they get frustrated, when they don't get their way, and when no one is watching. Pressure doesn't always create character. Often, pressure reveals it and brings it out to light. So, why are victims not believed? Here is why the people that have survived the abuse struggle. When they finally speak up, people respond based on their perceptions, not the perceptions and not the reality of the situation. They respond with, well, they're so nice. I've never seen that. I've never heard that. I've never witnessed that. They've always been so good to me. They do everything so well. And while those experiences may be genuine, they do not erase someone else's experiences or someone else's pain, abuse, or scars. A person can treat one group with kindness while mistreating another in private. I know of someone that I was related to that this person's parent was extremely charming and extremely respected and admired in the community and would give anything off the shirt of his back to help people in the community. But whenever it came to his own children and his own family, he treated them like dirt, and he mistreated them, and he was abusive verbally, emotionally, and physically. And, there's the public persona and then the private persona. There is a better way to judge character. Instead of asking, are they nice? Do they talk well? Do they treat you well? Are they polite and well-mannered? Here's some things that you can ask. Are they accountable? Are they transparent? Are they responsible? Can they admit when they are wrong? Can they admit how they are wrong? Can they admit responsibility? Do their words match what they say? More importantly, do their actions match their words? Do they respect boundaries? Do they establish clear boundaries? Do they apologize without excuse, explanation, or justification? Are they consistent across different situations? How do they treat people who have nothing to offer them? You know, the waiter, the waitress, the receptionist, the person that gives them their food. You know, these questions reveal much more than charm ever will or character ever will. So here's something I want you to think about and process, and more importantly, continually to process it as days and years go by. Charm can attract people. Charisma can attract people. Intelligence can attract people. Talent can attract people. But character, not being a character, but true, genuine character, keeps trust and builds trust. Do not let appearances, ability, talent, or fancy words become your only evidence. Pay attention to the patterns. Pay attention to what goes on and what is said and what is actually done. Because the truth about someone's character is usually written in what they consistently do, not what they occasionally say. So, Midwest Survivor, if this conversation encouraged you, if this conversation opened your eyes to some things, I want you to think about it and process it. Check out the community. I'll be posting a discussion about tonight's conversation on the community here shortly. Share it with somebody who may need the reminder that real character is measured by honesty and accountability, transparency and consistency, not by image, talent, or ability, or fancy words. Together, we can learn to recognize healthy relationships, healthy mindsets, healthy people, build lives that are rooted in truth and honesty and transparency and accountability. So, tonight's question is, have you ever been surprised when someone's true character was revealed? And looking back, were there warning signs that made sense only in hindsight? So as always, I want you to stay healthy, stay strong, stay positive, and remember, this isn't about surviving. This is about learning how to thrive, to be healthy, and more importantly, to be wealthy both in your mind and in how you do things. So Midwest Survivor, I'll see you tomorrow morning for Breakfast Bits. Have a good evening.